Hi everyone, good evening. From my side, I'm Lukas from Pupil and I brought also some colleagues with me, René and Oliver behind there. And the colleagues from Nine have asked us already multiple times, but this time it finally worked out to tell a bit on what we're doing with the cloud, how we moved into the cloud, how we moved also our infrastructure, and yeah, in general a bit also how we use Kubernetes, where then also the technical colleague René will dive into more details. But first of all, a bit about us. Who has heard about Pupil? Oh, really? We have some people that have heard. Okay, amazing. We are, to quickly go through our journey. It started somewhere at 2030 by some teachers at a very small village in the canton of Thurgau, where they were not really happy with the processes, how they worked at their school. So one of them could develop a bit. So he used PHP and MySQL to write like very first steps of an application, what we would call today an MVP, right? That was then used at his school. And then I at some point met this guy, and then he told me about that, and then I said, yeah, but the schools, they will never buy, budget. Anyway, it takes way too long. And at some point he called me and told me, yeah, I sold it now to 10 schools. Can you help me to set it up for them? And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's gonna be fun. So I helped him to spin up some more servers and copy paste some stuff over it to just have it working for them. And this is also where we then said, okay, now we need to make it a bit more serious. We incorporated the company that we have today, also moved the IP and everything in there. We also decided back then that we need to get some funding to also get some better developers than me in there to make sure that we can push this forward together. And to also, as you know, the schools still need a lot of time to decide if they buy the product, but that you really have this lead time that is needed on the sales cycle with the funding that we have up front. That was 2019, and then things went for us as a small Swiss company pretty fast. So in 2020, we got accredited in the canton of Thurgau, so that all schools could use it there. And in 2021, we basically won a public tender that all schools in the canton of St. Gallen, so our home canton, go and will use Pupil in the future for like everything they do in school. And then also 2022, the canton of Schwyz, and besides that, we could win a lot of individual schools also. And this year we got awarded for the whole canton of Aargau. So everybody who lives in Aargau and has kids in school will also start using Pupil somewhere within the next years. Obviously, this takes some time to do the rollout. And with that, as you can imagine, also the requirements to our infrastructure changed quite a bit from the initial servers we spun up to where we are now. Yeah, very quickly to the application itself. It's one application that covers all different processes that a typical school has. So we try to digitize those processes in the area. Sorry, it's in German. I don't have that one in English, but it's in the area of like printing the certificates. It's in the area of like maintaining all the master data of the students and parents and so on, and then also all the integration. Like you use some Apple devices, you use Microsoft and also all other stuff, and also additionally interactions with the parents. So the parents also have an application with which they can communicate with the teachers. They can send when their kid is absent, or for the daycare to basically register the kid or deregister the kid and so on. And typically before our solution, the school had to use like 3 to 5 different tools to do that job. So that meant they had like one application for printing the certificate, one application for like maintaining the class assignments and stuff like that, and then maybe also another application for doing things like a mediathek and so on. So all those things had to be kept in sync, and which was obviously a nightmare for the schools because they typically don't have like a single IT responsible person taking care for all that stuff. And so this is where we really have to focus on to be this all-in-one solution, which at the end then also covers that we are the all-in-one in software, that we cover the various stakeholders that the school has, that we have this modular design that basically a school can start only with a messenger, for example, or they could also only do the certificate printing with us, and then later on replace the other systems. Like if you have an ERP rollout in a company, you maybe also first start with a smaller part and then roll it out for the other modules. This is also what can be done with us. It's completely cloud-based. So yeah, we had the luck when we started that all our competitors had like on-premise solutions, and the schools were used to on-premise solution, and we from the beginning on only served it hosted by us and not by the school itself, interconnected between the modules and also with interfaces, and with a clear focus on K-12. Oh, I'm a bit behind, I see. With a clear focus on K-12. So that means at the moment we say we don't want to go into, for example, universities or areas like that, because the processes there look very different. So it's a clear, narrow focus, which also helps us to minimize the technical debt, because often when you have a too broad focus, then at some point you end up with too many configurations, which typically is the death of 1,000 years. Yeah, for that we also had to do quite a bit of work on our infrastructure over the past years. And for those who know me, I at some point also worked more on the infrastructure side, and then with that transitioned more into software side of things again. And basically when I joined and when we came, I was like, yeah, we had like this couple Linux VMs. Everything was working, they were reliable. When one broke down, it came up immediately again, because we all know that they're pretty stable if the hypervisor is stable. We had all automated, where we could deploy really fast, and as it's just a PHP application, also it doesn't need a huge lead time until it is really there. But we have somewhat a limited scalability, right? Because at some point we are out of RAM, and then we have to put in the next VM and the next VM, and as we grow with the schools, it just gets too much and not anymore really maintainable. But at this moment it was perfect, because it was really cheap, and the investors loved it also, that it was so cheap. But we all know we had to work on that to make it better, and also from an application side of things, we had then multiple discussions or what do we do, because as I told you before, we have the modular application, but behind that we really have, it's one code repository. Yes, it's a separate application for the chat that we have, and a separate application for some portals that we have, but the core of it is one application. And back then we were also in front of the decision, or should we refactor everything and go into like putting all different modules into microservices and then end up with like 50 microservices. But then we saw all the maintainability and also hosting that and scale that will be a huge challenge, although it looks very nice on the paper. And this is then also why we said, oh, we're gonna stay with what we had and double down on the domain-driven hexagon architecture. I will not go into the details here, but for those who know, it's basically you have a modular one repo application with clear guidelines also on how you basically can adapt it and make it bigger and grow. And we work on it today with like 35 developers, and it just works great for that scale. We also during that learned that customers don't really care what is underneath. So they only care about the agility, because at the end of the day, they didn't ask us for where do you run your stuff, or as they asked for, where is your server location, because they care about data privacy, but at the end of the day, they just wanted to ship us more functionalities and make sure they're happy on that. They wanted to see that the performance is all right, so they don't have to wait 10 seconds when they switch between the pages, and also the reliability in terms of the systems just need to be available. These are like the only things they care about and the only thing they pay for. They don't pay for that the app is full cloud native or perfect 12 factor or has like the perfect microservice architecture. And this is also a bit of realization what we had, why we said we really need to keep things simple. And here a small picture when we started, and also discussions with more senior IT responsible from schools saying, oh, we are now moving to a new infrastructure. We're going to start using Kubernetes. They said us, we don't really care about. It just needs to stay reliable. You just need to be able to ship things as fast as you do today. And this is what it needs to be. And basically OpenAI created that. When I told this story, OpenAI created that picture for me, basically bringing the analogy. If you are in a restaurant, you're also not asking the server, what fire station do you have? Is it induction, gas, or a fire pit? You just care if the meal at the end of the day is great, right? So, and this is what our journey is about, and what for us as a software provider is important. We want to keep it simple, stupid. This is our credo. We had to move a monolith with file system access. René will show him in a bit also the details there. And we really don't want to care about infrastructure. Our focus is on software, and we need someone who takes care of that. And this is also, where we need to have the strategic focus on, and why the business value goes in that part and not refactoring our infrastructure part. And yeah, we're glad to have that we found a good infrastructure provider to scale. And also with that shift, we were able from single VMs to Kubernetes to basically a school setup, for example, took us before like 4 or 5 hours, and now it's like 5 minutes and fully automated. And so things like that, with that we really gained a lot in that perspective, and are really happy on how it went. And now René would give you a quick overview what different components we use and how we really try to keep things simple and use as much managed services as we can, to not really care about and manage something ourselves.
Hello, I'm René. I'm part of the DevOps department. And yeah, it's really small, so not really readable from right behind. But this is a quick overview of our new infrastructure that we use with 9. We basically have a production system and a test system that are completely separated when it comes to the data. So we don't want to expose our customer data to our developers. And our developers have mostly also access to the testing system, but we go through the production system because this is basically the most important part. We have a Kubernetes cluster, Pupil Prod, and within this cluster we have basically for our tenants, as Lukas said earlier, we have cantons, and in the cantons we have obviously schools, and for each school we have a tenant. And right now our application is not a multi-tenancy application where we basically increase replicas, but right now we still have it separate. So each tenant will have a separate namespace, and within that namespace we will always have a deployment, and this deployment then includes the PHP container and an Nginx container. Requests are going through a web application firewall, then into an ingress, and they are then served via a service. And currently we have 2 database systems, more or less. So you will see here 4 databases, but basically these two are one unit and these two are one unit. So we have a failover IP to make sure that if one system goes down, we still can serve the data to the customers. Yeah, we recently added also another database. Yeah, another database system basically, or two separate databases again with a failover IP to make sure that yeah, we have a failover in case one MySQL server goes down. We also have for each tenant a persistent volume claim that basically yeah, serves a managed network file system by Nutanix. And we want to move away from this in the future and host our data basically in S3 storages. So these are the files, and obviously this is the data for the core application. 9 also provides us with Grafana Loki and Prometheus. And here is the Grafana logo missing, but we basically use Grafana for monitoring our infrastructure. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, René.
This database you have to say it's a stage and production, or it is why two database? Why you don't use some? I don't know. So is it clone of database? Copy of?
What do you, what?
You mean why we have multiple clusters?
Yeah.
It's basically kind of a sharding. So we use for like 300 schools one cluster, and then for another 300 schools the next cluster, and another for another 300 schools. Then we would exactly.
Yes. So basically, these are virtual managed databases, and the reason we use a virtual database is that 9 has the option that we have this encrypted, while with a hardware database, basically a typical normal Linux server with a MySQL server, we couldn't decrypt the data, and this is quite important for our customers. Yeah, that's it.
Any other questions? No?
Just maybe curiosity, you decided to go with MySQL, so it's the relational database, and why this approach and not other databases like NoSQL? So that's just curiosity maybe, because now NoSQL are getting much more popular, and with scalability and so on, it's I feel it's better, but there are some other reasons. And also wondering, you are small. No, quite small company, 50 few developers, yeah. I'm wondering how do you approach with the access? So I guess you have some testers, some DevOps, and also some developers, some support, so on. So how do you approach this? Because in big companies where there is big regulatory and so on, like some banks or other financial places or some even more government, is very strictly separated. Like people from development, they cannot even access the database, alter the schema, and so on. Maybe they can do some select, but each time they need to some request tickets, so on. So wondering this, if a single developer can enter the test environment, some UAT, or production environment, and how do you separate this to avoid some issues? Yeah, I know when there is small startup and everybody has access everywhere, but wondering how do you approach when there is small company, so you don't want to have too much regulations to speed up development, but also to have quite secure situation. I will just add one more thing. In the past, I was working in some small project, and we're also asking some extra database team to make some backup or some other stuff for the security, and instead of backup they did the recovery, and we lost for 1 week all the data. So some happens.
Tough, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the question. So on the first one, why a relational database and not something else? it's historical reasons. I mean, we start with that, then we had an initial version running, and it just fits for our case perfectly, right? I mean, because every school has its own database, and with that also the individual databases don't get that big. I mean, it's really not the biggest scale you can imagine that we're working on for the individual schools. And on the second part, as René mentioned, was like the production environment, but we have like a one-to-one copy more or less for the test environment. And there on the test environment, way more people have access than on the production environment. Production environment is very limited. And also everything is locked there, like all personal accesses and so on that we have. And also we had to go through the ISO certifications and some more certifications up the horizons that, yeah, really nail down those access points also. Yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Do you handle timetable schedule generation? Because that's sort of like, I find it an immensely complicated task. You have teachers, you have pupils, they've got to have so many classes of this thing, and they shouldn't really have all math classes on the Monday morning for the week and stuff. How do you approach that if you're doing it?
Yeah, well, also a very interesting question. This is like one of the most interesting problems, right? From a physical, mathematical point of view. On that, we have like a light version that is part of our all-in-one solution, where the schools basically can put in the lessons by themselves, and we show them the conflicts, but it's not an automated generation. And then we have a partner company, which we're also invested in, out of the group, that has this automated generation also on a very, very, bleeding edge environment and way of how they do it. And yeah, it's like free PhD physics that those guys really wrote the algorithm to do it, and that one works quite well. But this is like a typical buy case for us, and not something that we could. I mean, the team would love to build it by themselves, I guess, but this is like for me typically something that we buy if the schools wants to have that.
I would be curious who is driving the development of new features. Is it like schools come to you and say we would like this module extended, or this new module, or this functionality, or is it strictly you and you say okay, this is a new thing which you will have access to and you can use it?
So it's both sides, right? We obviously are very close to or try to be very close to our customers with the product management team and with the sales team. And there we get tons of requests, as you can imagine, of things that they see different, or things that they see that can be improved, or additional needs that they place with us. And then it's basically the product management teams that try to standardize those and prioritize those accordingly. So there it's also important for us. Yeah, we have different cantons in Switzerland, right? And you can, one of you may think a school is a school, but they're actually very, very different. Also, if they're in the same canton, and then you have very small school and big schools, and with that they also come with different requirements, right? And then it's really the product management team that aligns this and prioritizes this. And then we also sometimes have some user group sessions where we get the users together and tell them, okay, this is how we're gonna approach that, and then get some early feedback in, and then yeah, this goes into the development flow then also. Yeah, combined work. Thanks.
Good, let's say that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And René told before he's person of the DevOps department. That sounds like a big department. It's actually 2 people, and we are looking for a new person if someone knows someone.